All right, everyone. Welcome. It's Monday, February 10th, 2025. Welcome to the He Said, She Said Sports Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Big Red, along with my host, Tony. How are you doing, Tony, on this Monday afternoon?
Not as good as you, Big Red.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Obviously, there was a Super Bowl played yesterday where the Eagles won against the Chiefs 40-22, which it probably wasn't even that close, to be
No, it was a
honest.
good old-fashioned ass whooping, is what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Let me know how you feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, that score doesn't even reflect how brutally the Eagles beat down on the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you had told
Hmm.
me, and if you had told anybody on the Kansas City Chiefs that they would limit Saquon to well under 100 yards rushing,
Yep.
that they would lose that game by that much,
Much. Yeah.
I think even Eagles fans would have been a little bit like, are you sure about that one? It
Yeah.
was an absolute clinic defensively. Jalen Hurts was phenomenal. I don't want to take away
Hmm.
from that. But the defensive plan that Fangio put into place, he spagged Spagnolo. Like he had
Yeah. Yeah.
such a great plan, similar to, as I said on the broadcast, similar to how the Bucks beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl the last time the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They made Patrick Mahomes play the worst game of his career, and they did it all with just the front four. Zero blitzes the entire game. They
Game.
were
Yep.
able to cover everybody and still make Mahomes uncomfortable. They were able to squeeze him in the pocket. He had happy feet from the very first quarter, and he could not get comfortable. I've never seen him play like that.
No, definitely for sure. You definitely touched on it. The defense. No, no. We'll get to Jalen Hurts here in a minute, but definitely the defense. I kind of talked about it on the podcast last week about the secondary, like the Eagles having a different team than the last Super Bowl. The last Super Bowl, those guys couldn't really lock up man to man and cover like that, and for them not to have to blitz and just like you said, the defensive line are really like the unsung heroes because for you not have to blitz the whole game and get all that amount of pressure where you sack Mahomes more times than he's ever been sacked in a playoff game
Six
is
times.
is
That's a
yeah.
career high, I believe.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for him to get sacked, yeah. And so, it allowed those guys on the back end to, like you said, maybe have one guy roaming in zone, but everybody else just locking up. And I mean, you could tell Patrick Mahomes was real giddy in the pocket. He didn't trust his line after, the second drive, really, of the game, where he was just
No,
looking
no, and
to
he
try to
doesn't he didn't
scramble.
have the strongest core of receivers to begin with, and once the secondary
Exactly.
was able to lock them up, the thing is none of them could break free of man coverage. I don't think,
Yeah.
as we talked about last week, they haven't been consistent. That's not a consistent group of receivers for him. I mean, Xavier Worthy had a quiet 152 yards, 8 receptions. Like he had two touchdowns. He had a quietly great day.
Yeah. Both of those
He's
big
a
plays he
really
had was
strong
against
future.
backups, though, for
He's
sure.
he's a really strong future for that team. I think that he's better than a lot of people gave him credit for. He had a quiet, really great outing for himself as a rookie. But
Definitely.
I swear I was sitting there thinking, are we gonna give Josh Sweat the MVP? Because I mean, 2.5 sacks. He was a monster.
Yeah, for sure. Him and Melton
Yeah.
for
And
Melton played his best game.
they were able to do what many people consider to be impossible, which is completely disrupt Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. No, definitely for sure. You mentioned Josh Sweat. Yeah, him and Melton played a great game. Those guys were, and it was like they were teeing off on Kansas City's offensive line, which were struggling out the gate. They've had injuries and been trying to piece that together all year, and it kind of came back to bite them in this game. They never looked that bad, and it was just like they picked the worst game to try to, you know, they picked the worst game to play that bad for sure.
They did
Um,
they did not show up to play yesterday.
yeah,
That the offensive line was like that the security guards that just put their hands up and like hope for the best and don't actually
yeah,
stop anybody.
no, no, for sure, no. And like I said, the D line kind of set the tone for the rest of the game and let those guys, like I said, drop back in coverage. And they actually kind of had I kind of noticed on a few plays too, they kind of had like a spy on Mahomes, where they just kind of had a linebacker moving with him,
Mhm.
just in case he took off running, and um, on that interception he threw to Cooper DeJean, where
Happy
he ran.
birthday, Cooper DeJean,
Yeah, yeah, happy
22
birthday,
years old, pick
yeah.
six in the Super Bowl, and he got to eat cake after.
After, yeah, for sure. But like on that pick with Cooper DeJean, he thought about running on that play, but he saw the guy spying, so he kind of had to make a quick decision because I was kind of shocked that he didn't see Cooper DeJean just floating right there in that area, and he kind of made it. Mahomes kind of made a couple of those throws already in the game where he kind of threw it, rolling to the right and throwing back to the left. He kind of made some of those throws, so they were kind of, I guess Cooper DeJean was kind of just eyeballing it, which he was, and took it and scored, which was a great play for sure for him, birthday boy.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Really, I mean, it was a really, really completely solid, well-rounded job defensively from Fangio. I mean, I think the percentage Patrick Mahomes was pressured 47% of the time in the first half. Like I said,
Hmm.
zero blitzes, and he was just not able to, even if he could escape the pocket, he had nobody. But they did.
Yeah.
It's incredible what those four guys in the front were able to do because there's so much strength and force, but it's so controlled, and they kept him so
Yeah.
trapped in the pocket. He wasn't able to wiggle out. And when he did manage to do his little Mahomes magic and wiggle his way out, he had nobody to throw to.
Nobody to go to. No, you're absolutely right. The Eagles did. They stayed in their lanes. They basically, made that whole pocket make it basically saying we're going to stay in our lanes and we're not going to over pursue or overplay to where he gets out and release and makes a play. They played hella disciplined. It was literally the Eagles' best defensive game this year, even though they had the number one D in the league. They played well all year long, but I mean, the lights were on and they came to play for sure. Definitely on that. Couple
It
people
would
who I
be,
want
I would be remiss, Big Red, if I didn't hand you out this one little stat, and then I promise we won't talk about the Bengals until later. But
to.
this conversation, it was pretty recently that there were a couple people out there claiming that Joe Burrow is not an elite quarterback. And then
What?
yeah, that was said on a broadcast, on a real life broadcast. Somebody said, an analyst said he is not an elite quarterback. And I'm not going to name that analyst. If you know, you know.
Yeah,
And then we're sitting there on the broadcast last night talking about how hard it is when you're being pressured like that to make things happen. And I realized that we as Bengals fans normalize that. We have
yeah,
normalized Joe Burrow being able to navigate the pocket no matter what, with no offensive line there to protect him sometimes. And he just creates, and yes, he has Jamar and he has and he has T to throw to, but
yeah.
he wouldn't be able to throw to them if he wasn't able to avoid that pressure. So,
Uh-huh.
that I have for you, and this is Jalen Hurts said it last night, defense wins championships. Mahomes was pressured on 40%, 7% of dropbacks in the first half against the Eagles. You saw how that went.
Yep.
Joe Burrow versus the Ravens in week 10 pressured 48% of his dropbacks, 428 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. They lost that game.
Game, yeah.
So if anything, Bengals, let's invest in the defense.
For sure. Definitely. We kind of like you said, we kind of spoke on that before with the Bengals about draft wise and free agency wise, getting Hendrickson signed
Yeah.
and adding some pieces to the defense for
I
sure.
would have been remiss if I didn't mention it, but somebody else that needs to be mentioned in this
Joe
elite
Burrow is
conversation.
definitely an elite quarterback in this
Oh yeah.
league, 100%. There's
But
no
somebody
question
else that
about that.
needs to be mentioned in that conversation is Jalen Hurts, and he gets a lot of disrespect, and he gets
Yep.
overlooked a lot,
Shout out my
by
boy.
me, including by me because of some of the passing numbers. And
No, yeah,
it's because he does what he needs to do to win, and he gets overlooked. But you have to sit here and say now, okay, there's three quarterbacks that have beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs.
yeah.
It's Tom
Brady,
Brady, it's Joe
Joe
Burrow, and
Burrow.
now it's Jalen Hurts. And you
Uh-huh.
would be remiss if you did not mention him in the category of elite quarterbacks. He
Yeah,
was
no.
phenomenal last night. He had the one interception, and other than that, he was completely flawless.
Flawless, 100%. No, I agree. No, this like, and this is the thing. Like Jalen's known this all year. It's like it's kind of one of those things where it's like, why are people trying to ruffle feathers? Like, or say this guy's not elite, or say he's not a good quarterback. Like he does what's asked of him. If he has to throw the ball, he will. If the game doesn't come to him where it's the throwing the ball, obviously they'll run the ball. But like you said, they keyed on shutting down Saquon last night, right? And I knew that would be big for Jalen
I think
because
that was the only thing that the Chiefs game planned for.
yeah, it's like
Saquon.
they didn't game plan for nothing else. It's like I'm like, okay, they're keying on Saquon so tough. I know Jalen's going to pop a couple of these runs, which he were doing, and some of those runs he was making was just him dropping back in the pocket and seeing the opening and just taking it. He didn't waste no time or try to force anything. He just dropped back and went. And like I said, it kind of helped tremendously because it seemed like the Chiefs were just so keen on Saquon, Saquon, Saquon. Let's stop Saquon. But like you said, Hurts was so efficient. I mean, 17 to 22, 221 yards. Like you said, he did throw the interception early, but after he threw it, nothing changed about him. His demeanor didn't change. Nothing changed. And
His legs
you
were
know,
a huge factor in this one as well. I think him running the ball
huge.
instead of Saquon was huge. They weren't ready for that.
No, they weren't. And like I said, he made a couple key first downs to keep the drives alive for us with those runs, and it was just taking the life out of the Chiefs for sure. Jalen Hurts, like you said, he's to me, I've always felt like he was a great quarterback. I didn't really care about the stats, with me being an Eagles fan, like, yeah, I
Right.
want to see my boys ball out. Devontae Smith, AJ Brown. I want to see them ball out for sure and get the numbers they could probably get on a lot of other teams. But at the end of the day, it's just like you said, it's about winning. And Jalen Hurts has proven time and time again, that he's a winner. And even if you look back at the last Super Bowl, how well he played in that game. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't his fault. They lost that game. You
Mhm.
know, like if it would have been, he would have got ridiculed for it. Just like if last night, if he would have played bad and they would have lost, they would have been like off with his head. But congrats to him, Super Bowl MVP. He's put himself in the category of a lot of greats for sure. And, like I said, hopefully that debate on Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow is put to rest because the whole, elite thing is just it's crazy. It's some
Yeah.
bullshit for real. Like for you to not think those guys are MVPs. But no, another a guy I want to shout out though for sure, who I feel like got snubbed as well. Don't get me wrong. I like Patrick Surtain. He's a baller. I'm not taking nothing away from him on Defensive Player of the Year, but come on, my dude Zach Bond is a baller. He's a beast, man. He had a great game last night too. He had the interception on Mahomes at the end of the first half, which let the Eagles score again right before half. They put them up like what I think 17-0. It was, yeah. But no, so the year that he had, man, that linebacker was just crazy. And like I said, I kind of mentioned him too in the pass coverage, like being great in pass coverage, and he showed that too on that interception. So shout out to him and shout out to Melton too, Mitchell Melton, our D line. I think that's his name. He had a great game. He had literally his best game of his career. You said Sweat had 2.5 sacks and Melton had 2 sacks, so they
Yeah.
were feasting on Mahomes for
No, I
sure.
mean, look, like we said, we got to give Jalen his flowers, but I almost wanted to give the MVP to that entire front four of the
Defense, yeah.
Eagles. You
Hmm.
can't really give it to a group of guys, but that front four, they were they were phenomenal. Bond was phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah,
the defense really was the MVP of that game.
yeah, no, definitely. It kind of and what's crazy about the game too. It kind of started off on a wrong turn with those couple of calls by the refs. With the off.
Did you see that? Like D Hop is out here talking about calls. I don't think you have any credibility to say a word about the
Yeah,
officiating when you lose by that much.
much. Yeah, no, definitely. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't agree with either of the calls. The
Oh,
offensive
me
pass
either.
interference on AJ Brown, I didn't agree with. And then when they caught Trent McDuffie on the roughing on the Dallas Goddard, I didn't feel like that was roughing either. I kind of felt like they just
I
gave
thought we
one
were
and
in for
one.
a rough night.
Yeah, I did
Those
too.
first two calls.
Especially after that AJ Brown one. That one was completely ridiculous. I said, "Oh yeah, here we go. It's gonna be one of those nights." But no, like the Eagles just put it on them so bad that the refs couldn't really have any involvement in the game, which I'm glad that was the case because
Yeah,
the
but the
big games like this, you
culmination,
don't want refs coming down and making decisions on whether who wins or lose for sure.
the
So
culmination of the Chiefs season being them complaining about the refs. I,
can't nobody on that team complain about nothing about no refs. It had nothing to do with the refs. That literally was the first drive of the game when that was called. No, the second and third drive, I want to say, of the game when those plays were called. Like, it was still so much time left in that game. That did not matter whatsoever.
you
It
can't be
wouldn't,
down, you can't be down 40-6 and be complaining about the refs.
yeah. And literally, it was 34 to nothing at one point, So it's just like, and it's kind of like Xavier Worthy. Like, he did have a great game, but he got all of his points in dog time when, like, the Eagles were putting the backups in to let the backups kind of get some play and stuff like that. So they, like I said, they completely shut them boys down more than anything I've ever seen. The Eagles kind of like put a format out there now for future teams playing the Chiefs for sure. A lot of people are going to go back and watch this film and be like, what the hell did the Eagles do in this
Yeah.
game? Because, it's not over for Patrick Mahomes for sure, not by a long shot. And
No, he's got years ahead of him, and he had the GOAT calling the game yesterday. Tom Brady was calling this
mm-hmm,
game that to me was a big game to decide on, potentially whether or not Patrick Mahomes, he's been involved in this conversation of is
this whole
Patrick
GOAT
Mahomes the
conversation,
GOAT?
right?
Is he going to be as good as Brady? Is he going to be better than Brady? And for Tom Brady to be calling this game where I essentially think that at least for the next 10 years, Mahomes is out of this conversation.
Yes.
You're going to now have to revisit it towards the end of his career. But
Mm-hmm.
for the time being, it has been completely squashed. There is no more conversation. Tom Brady, yes, he has lost Super Bowls. He has never lost a Super Bowl by this kind of margin. He has never
Yeah, never.
had this kind of game. And then you
No, no,
look
no,
at the number of
100%.
rings, and Mahomes got a long way to go, and he still has a long career ahead of him. And it's not to say that he's not an elite quarterback and that he won't recover from this, but that
Mm-hmm.
conversation of who the GOAT is, in my mind, that's dead.
Yeah, it's definitely dead. I mean, it's in my mind, some people don't realize what GOAT means. It's like greatest of all time. It's like people use that so loosely nowadays. And it's just like, Brady, like you said, he's been to how many Super Bowls? What, nine, I think?
He said
Nine
it
or
on the
10?
broadcast. He was like, "Yeah, in my ninth Super Bowl." I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay,
and he's
F
won
you, dude.
seven.
Got it."
He's won seven. So unless you're in that quarterback and you're in that 5, 6, 7 realm, you can't talk about being the greatest or I have heard the debates obviously or who is he going to be better than Brady. It's like no, he's not. He's never in my opinion, Mahomes is great. He's elite. He's the face of the league for sure. But he's never been in a position in his career where you can say, "Oh, he's catching up to Brady." In my
Well,
opinion, yes, he's been to some Super Bowls the last 4 or 5 years. Granted, he's been to a lot of them. He's won 3. He's lost 2. I totally get that. If now it would have been a lot different if he would have won, the 2 if that he lost. If he was 5-0, we could be having that conversation right now, for sure, 100%. But like you said, Tom Brady has never played in the Super Bowl and laid an egg like that. Now he's played. Tom Brady has had a bad first half where they were down to Atlanta 28-3 at halftime, but he came back and led them to win that game. So he's never had those type of games. So like you said, I think it's going to be a few years. And the Chiefs are definitely going to have to strike again on the Super Bowl rings a couple of times before we could even
yeah.
start talking about GOAT debates, in my
Brady went
opinion.
10 years without a ring. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely doable. You're definitely able to come back from something like this, but
Oh yeah, the Chiefs they definitely got to draft offensive line and they got to go defense. They got to get some more weapons around him for sure. I'm pretty sure they're going to try to pick up some guys in free agency, or if not the draft. I mean, it's not over for them guys. They're still going to be in the thick of things, next year and for years to come. So, it's not all the way out for Chiefs fans. I mean, I know they're probably feeling it right now, but I mean, come on, they've been spoiled the last few years. So, and I kind of think people were tired of seeing the Chiefs. And a lot of people I knew were going for Philly just because they didn't want to see the Chiefs. So,
I think, yeah,
but
I think there's a large group of people who became Eagles fans on February 9th, 2025 for a day.
yeah,
So,
no, definitely, definitely. But yeah, no, as far as GOAT debate, no, he's not a GOAT. He's a great player, elite, you know, definitely not taking nothing away from him. A future Hall of Famer for
yeah.
sure, but GOAT, I don't think so.
Mm.
But your boys, let's talk about the Bengals. They've been getting, they're like the third team that's been being talked about the most this week,
Yeah, I
besides the
mean,
Eagles and the
media
Chiefs.
media week for the Super Bowl, and there were three teams being talked about: the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody on their team did a phenomenal job. Somebody on Joe Burrow's team did a phenomenal job making sure that he was on every single broadcast, every podcast. He was everywhere. I don't think anybody's ever seen that much of him in the media. And he was saying
Yeah.
the same things over and over again. We got to keep the people that we need in the building in the building. We can make it work. We've got the space. We've got the cap space. The cap keeps getting bigger and bigger. We want to make it work. We want to stay together. And that we being Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, he included Mike Gesicki in that as well, which I think is a
Oh
great
yeah.
addition to that team.
Mike
I
Gesicki's
love
nice.
Gesicki and Trey
Yeah.
Hendrickson, and they want to keep all of these people together, and what Joe has been stressing is they're willing to make that work. And he went on First Take, he said it. Shannon Sharp was real quiet when Joe Burrow was on First Take, let me just say. But Stephen A, said, I'm worried. I'm worried about these things that you're saying, that you need to get this guy and sign this guy and sign this guy. But it's doable. There are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
guys on the defensive end that are older and a little bit more expensive that aren't living up to what they need to live up to. That if you cut
Yeah.
a few guys and you draft really well defensively and get a lot of rookie contracts on the defensive end, and you pick up some other
They
pieces,
definitely got a strike in the
you
draft.
have the room, you have the cap space to get this done. You are able
Definitely.
to do that. I mean, just look at the Eagles championship roster and what they're all going to be making next
I'm
year.
glad I was just about to
It's
mention that. I'm glad you mentioned
doable.
that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Joe was everywhere. He was everywhere, and he did it at the Pro Bowl as well the week prior. So for 2 weeks now, all we've been hearing, especially as Bengals fans, but football fans, all we've been hearing
Mm-hmm.
is Jamar is a need, T is a need, Trey is a need, and we all want to make that work, and we want to get that
Yeah.
done.
Definitely. I think the Bengals should obviously, you know, you need those core players, to keep things going, kind of like you mentioned. And, like you mentioned with the Eagles as well, like Howie Roseman, he drafted well the last couple of years. Like he struck on most of his draft picks. And I feel like that's what the Bengals would have to do for sure. Keep those core pieces in play and make sure you hit on the majority. It's hard to hit on all your draft picks, but make sure you're hitting, and those guys you're drafting are getting on the field and playing, because it's definitely going to be important for them in the future to compete with the Mahomes and the Josh Allens and those guys, to keep those pieces together for sure.
I don't know if the Bengals have ever had a player like Joe Burrow who could put pressure on the front office in this way,
I
because
don't think they
he's
have for
going to
sure.
have Bengals fans up in arms if this front office doesn't get it done. You have your franchise quarterback going on every single media platform possible saying, we can make this happen. We want to make it happen. We're going to do everything on our end to make it happen.
Hmm.
Can you
You know why I
imagine
think
if
he's
it
doing that?
doesn't?
Because he knows that the Bengals owners and organizations aren't used to spending money, especially in free agency. They don't go out and get the big players and stuff like that, or even keep some of their players necessarily that are looking for more money. So and Joe Burrow knows that. That's why he's advocating so hard, because if the Bengals don't get this taken care of, it's not going to fall. He's making sure it's not going to fall back on him, because he's the one who's trying to keep everyone together for sure.
And I think you got to keep a guy like that happy. Like,
Yeah.
as the front office, right? You have to keep him happy. He's your
Yeah, he's the
franchise
cornerstone.
quarterback.
Yeah.
You can't lose him. You cannot allow that to
100%.
happen. And you can't waste his window. And he's been very clear. The window is his career.
Mm-hmm.
There's no window of his career. The window is his career. So
Yeah.
make it happen. Go for it now. I would prefer to do it while he's younger because I'd like to
Uh-huh.
get a couple out of him. I think we can.
No, yeah, for sure. You guys are definitely in the mix for sure. I think you guys could as well. It's
They're
obviously
the
your
only
AFC is tough, but
non-playoff team from 2024 that was mentioned as a potential 2025 Super Bowl contender.
yeah. And speaking of that, let's talk about that. Like as far as next year, like who are the contenders and stuff like that that are teams that could possibly, put themselves in a position that the Eagles did where they kind of, you know, put all the pieces together and got some draft pieces and, put that thing together and ran it up. But
Yeah. Obviously,
nah,
the
like
Bengals, the Ravens are always a threat as long as they have
hmm
Lamar, right? The Bills are always a threat as long as they have Josh Allen. So the four AFC teams that have been powerhouses and have been threats, so that's Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. They will be
hmm
back at it again, vying for those spots again. I can almost guarantee you that. Those are going to be the teams. I mean, when you have an elite
no sleeper
quarterback,
teams, no sleeper teams,
there
no
are definitely sleeper
Houston's.
teams. There are definitely sleeper teams. But when you have elite quarterbacks like that, those are always the biggest threats.
Yeah,
And so
you're
the
usually always in the
AFC
mix for
is
sure.
filled with that elite quarterback talent. The NFC side, I think you have a little bit more flexibility. I think the Eagles, obviously, especially if they keep Kellen Moore, are heavy favorites to go back. But you can't forget about Detroit. They were riddled with injuries. It was a
hmm
shocking exit that they had, but also 16 players on injured reserve going into that game
Yeah,
against a Washington team that we found out is pretty damn good. And I think that's
and
proven
they're a sleeper
even
team too.
more by yesterday's result how good Washington actually is.
hmm
So you've got those teams in there in the mix: Detroit, Eagles, Commanders. I think they'll be big, big threats. And I would say
not the
probably
Cowboys.
no. I would say it's probably going to be one of those three teams in the NFC side that make the trip next year.
No, definitely. Uh, I mean, like you said, AFC, the top of the crop is quarterback driven, So, like you said, Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe, Pat Mahomes, obviously.
I'm excited to see what
But
the Broncos do in the
yeah,
offseason and if Bo Nix is able to maintain and grow or have that sophomore
same,
slump.
same, and they're going to have to get some more defensive pieces too to go out there with Surtain as well. Um, Houston could be a team I could see, moving up or a sleeper team if they draft well. Who else? Who else? Who else? NFC. Of course, the Eagles. They're young. They had the youngest defense ever in Super Bowl history. So obviously they're going to be there next year. Detroit, obviously, as well. Minnesota, we kind of don't know what they're going to be because we don't know who's going to be their quarterback. I'm
It
pretty sure it's not
doesn't
going to be
seem like
Sam
they're going
Darnold.
to stick with Sam Darnold. It
No,
seems like
I
they
think
are going to give JJ McCarthy a go.
yeah, and this will be his. He was a rookie last year, but this will be his first time playing full season. So we don't know how that's going to work. That could end disastrous if he's not like live up to that first round draft level.
Yeah, but
But
if Sam Darnold can do it, I don't see why a rookie.
I mean, I get it.
No
Trust me, I get
hate,
it.
no hate, Sam
Sam Darnold was
Darnold.
a top three, like a top five pick though too. Don't get me wrong. Like Sam Darnold, he didn't live up to his billing, but he's no slouch. You feel
when
me?
you when you have threats like Justin Jefferson and Addison in your wide out positions, and Addison's
hmm
really developing, TJ Hawkinson as a tight end, you know, a decent O line,
Yeah.
and then you know, I think that there are a lot of quarterbacks who might be able to shine in an offense like that.
Yeah, but it's like, like you said, like like how we kind of talked about Jaden Daniels, a rookie quarterback taking his team to all the way to the NFC Championship game. Could JJ McCarthy be one of those guys who can do
That's
that for the Vikings? It's possible.
It's possible, but it's going to come down to how composed he is in
It's
his
going to, yeah,
unofficial rookie season.
it's going to come down to how he plays. And in my opinion, for the Vikings to be contenders next year, their defense is going to have to be outstanding to help that rookie out for sure. Because in my eyes, he's still going to be a rookie. He haven't really played no significant time yet,
He
So
hasn't played any time. He's had an
yeah,
AC. He had an injury before the season even started.
season started. Yeah, so you're basically going to be a rookie. So it's hard. You don't really see rookies come in and have years like Jaden Daniels had. You know,
No,
but So I don't know about the Vikings. They're kind of iffy. I'm more high on the Commanders for next year than I would
they're going
be
to
the
be good.
Vikings.
They're going to
Yeah.
be good.
And
I,
if they draft well too and pick up some guys in free agency, get a couple of pieces on the O line, you know,
yeah.
I know they got a couple pieces at running back with Austin Eckler and Brian Robertson, but those guys was having trouble staying healthy. But no, I'm more high on the Commanders for sure. But
I'm very high on the Commanders, and that truly, like they have they have really really good pieces, and they've had some surprise really phenomenal pieces. But that team is gonna go places and is driven by Jaden Daniels. He
hmm
is so poised, so composed. He is the next elite, the next great quarterback. You can see it when he does interviews. He was doing this interview, this little game challenge thing in one of the media row. I forget which one, but
uh-huh.
they had different quarterbacks making plays, but they had it all like blurred out. You couldn't tell
Yeah,
who it was. You had to
who it
guess who it
was. Yeah,
was. Jaden Daniels is in the film room because I couldn't even get them before, like, you couldn't even get them before him. He was just spitting out names. He's like, oh,
yeah.
yep, that's this one, that's this one, he is in that film room. And something that Tom Brady said recently in an interview was his superpower was
The
knowing
film
his
room. Yeah.
opponent inside and out and knowing how to diagnose a defense at lightning speed and being the person in the film room. When you have the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, you're in that film room day in, day out, and you get to know them. You know exactly what they're going to do, and you're able to diagnose
hmm
faster than the defense is able to make those plays. And I can see that in a guy like Jaden Daniels. He
Yeah,
clearly
he's a film junkie.
knows his
He's a film
football.
junkie. Yeah, and that's going to, like you said, that can only help you. Like even back in like the '90s, right? Like or like the late '90s, early 2000s, right? You had those like those pocket quarterbacks who like couldn't move. They had no, like a Peyton Manning kind of no running ability whatsoever to save his life. The film, him being such a film junkie, it literally helped him to be able to do those things. Like the film is going to work for you. You watching film and working on your craft and doing the things you need to do are going to be way more beneficial for you, than not watching the film as much. So Jaden Daniels, he's definitely got a bright future. I hate that he's in our division, but I'm definitely rooting for him for sure, but he's definitely up there. But like you said, I think that's going to be a lot on JJ next year. It's going to be a lot of pressure. Vikings fans are going to have a lot of pressure on him to be back up there, compete with the NFC North with Detroit and Green Bay, and
And
to make the
possibly even the
playoffs.
Bears with Ben Johnson. You don't know what that team
Yeah,
is going to
you
look
don't know what
like.
that's going to be either. Yeah, they could look totally different next year for sure. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure on OJJ to keep that team in the mix of things. But we'll see how it goes. Best of luck to him for sure. But I think that's going to be kind of a lot. I don't think it's something that's going to happen right away. I think the Vikings will take a little drop next year, in my opinion. But it'll take them a year or two to kind of get back in that mix
Yeah,
for sure.
could take time. We'll have to see
Yeah,
him develop. He's so untested. He was so young.
yeah.
Compared, I mean, playing experience wise, compared to guys like Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams coming out of college, he just had significantly less playing time. I mean, Bo Nix was a 24-year-old super,
hmm
super senior. So somebody like JJ McCarthy, who's I think 22, 23. I mean, he's
Yeah,
super young.
yeah. No, definitely. I'm interested to see what he does though. Like I said, I watched him in college. Me being an Ohio State fan, him going to Michigan. I watched a lot of him in college. But and back when he was in college, Michigan really relied on the run. Where they had Jim Harbaugh, and
Oh
Blake
yeah,
Corum.
speaking of sleeper teams, the Chargers. We forgot about
Yeah,
the Chargers.
no, definitely. Yeah,
Harbaugh
they definitely.
is
Yeah,
yeah, was great with them this year. Sleeper team. I
definitely
kind of
sleeper team for
tossed them out
sure.
of my mind when Justin Herbert threw 4 interceptions in a playoff game. But
Yeah,
they are
it's going to
definitely
come up. It's going to be up to
contenders.
Herbert for sure. Yeah, no, definitely.
Sorry.
They. No,
I
you're
just
good.
realized that we totally forgot about them.
Yeah, I somebody I was forgetting too. I can't remember still, but it was somebody I forgot too. So don't feel bad. But no, yeah, no, definitely like those guys. JJ McCarthy. They depended on running the ball and then kind of throwing off the play action. So with those guys like Justin Jefferson and Addison there, they're going to definitely be looking to do a lot more throwing than he ever has done
Yeah.
probably since high school. So we'll see how it goes for him for sure. Your boy though, Jameis Winston was out there Super Bowl week.
The greatest.
The-
I'm sorry, Jalen Hurts. I don't care that you won the MVP. The MVP of the Super Bowl is Jameis Winston. I have consumed every millisecond of his content. The person that just said in a meeting at Fox Sports said, let's make Jameis Winston our correspondent for the Super Bowl.
He's got a future in that for sure.
Jameis
100%.
Winston is a guy that a year ago only like a few people really knew about. Like you knew
Hmm.
about him. He had the 30 for 30 season. Like he was definitely talked about, but he'd kind of gotten quiet. In
Yeah.
one single season, he has guaranteed himself not only more years of football because there are going to be teams that want him, but
Yeah, he's going to get signed for sure. He's
also
going to get signed.
a media broadcasting career when this is
That's what I'm
all
talking
over.
about. Yeah. He's going to
He
have a hell of a
They
career in
handed
this
him a
Minnesota.
microphone and said, "Go run around New Orleans, have fun." He put his heart
Hmm.
and his soul, and I think especially because he's from there and he
Yeah.
resonates so much with that city, and that city has embraced him. He just ran around the city having the time of his life, and he is
Yeah.
infectious.
No.
And if you hate Jameis Winston, you are the wrong kind of person because he is an impossible guy to hate. He is just filled with so much fun, so much joy, life, personality. And yeah, maybe you don't want him to be the quarterback, starting quarterback of your team, but we need him in football.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, Jameis he's that guy. He's just got a bright spirit, man. Like him out there talking to Saquon, asking him like he was asking Saquon like, "Yo, what team should pick me up?" He's like, "Oh, the Giants need a quarterback." And then what was else was funny? The W cookies were hilarious. Him tossing out the W's to eat the W's. Yeah, eat the W. Yeah,
AJ
that's
Brown did
hilarious.
his celebration. He did the
Yeah,
chuck
I
and
was
the
gonna say
slide.
that. Yeah, he did a slide. Yeah, he just didn't eat the W at the end though, like
I
he told him
know.
to.
Well,
Yeah,
you know what? I don't know if anybody but James is qualified to eat the W. To
eat
be
the
to
W.
be
Yeah, yeah,
totally
yeah,
honest with you, there's
yeah.
no.
But no.
There is a video on the internet. If you haven't found it yet, if you haven't seen it yet, they took a beignet and they put it in the shape of a W, and they gave it to
Hmm.
Jameis. And Jameis and the W beignet are having a conversation. I saw it on TikTok, but I'm sure it's on Reels. I'm sure it should be everywhere. It should be it should be on a billboard in Times Square. Jameis speaking for the W beignet in a little squeaky little voice, talking back and forth to it. If you
Hmm.
haven't treated yourself to that video,
No,
don't
I'm gonna have to
worry.
check it out. I
I'm
haven't seen
about
it.
10,000 of the views for that video, so just go give it a look. See, um, he
No,
is
I will. Yeah.
phenomenal. His joy is infectious. As
Hmm.
somebody who takes life a little more seriously, and I'm
Yeah.
a fairly intense person, to see Jameis just have so much joy and bring so much joy into the world, like that's the kind of guy you want to be friends with. That's the kind
Yeah,
of guy
for
you want to
sure. That
run into.
positivity.
And he's just a
Yeah.
good dude, and I hope New York picks him up because I live here in New York, and I might go watch a few Giants games if he's
If
quarterbacking.
he's quarterbacking, yeah, for sure. You're right there. Yeah. Hell yeah. No, he's definitely a great personality, man. He's just got the biggest personality, and then he's just naturally funny. Like even he's not trying to be, like I'm not sure if it's sarcasm or what, but dude is just naturally funny. I had a blast watching this time, and the more I was watching, I'm like, yo, this is NFL might not be his future. This is where his future is at for sure.
He's
He's
still
gonna
a
make a
really solid backup.
yeah. He's got some years
Let's
to
not
play
get
for
that
sure.
twisted. He's still a great backup to have right
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. But like I said, his future NFL, he got more years ahead of him than he does behind him, in my opinion. But I think his future is definitely bright on the TV and the personality of the wise on that screen. He definitely needs to have a show, a podcast. He needs to do something for sure because he's just box office 100%. He had those players rolling, cracking up.
He's amazing. Credit to
Yeah.
Jameis Winston. If you haven't gone and looked up his time as Fox Media correspondent, please do. Please treat yourself. And oh my God, it's a show. It's it was better than the halftime show, and the
I
halftime
was
show
just
was
about to
good.
ask you about that. What did you think about the halftime show? I was just going to mention that.
So
A lot of
personally, I enjoyed the hell out of it.
yeah,
But
same
I do think that it wasn't a halftime show for everyone. I think if you don't know the lore and you don't know the beef and you don't know why these things are funny, it maybe wasn't for you. And I could see how people are saying that it was a bad halftime show. And I definitely also think that it catered more to the TV audience than it did to the in-person audience, which is
person audience.
which is smart.
Uh-huh.
Kendrick is not in my opinion, a fill stadiums, big stadium show guy. It's about his lyrics. It's about what he's saying. It's about the message and let's be
Yeah.
honest, the hate. He is a hater at his core, and he teaches me every day that I'm not enough of a hater and that I could be a bigger hater. And I'm not doing it. The evil smirk when he
About the
said,
Drake.
"Hey
Yeah.
Drake,
Say Drake. I heard you like I'm young.
I can't get that shit-eating evil grin out of my head. It's replaying in my brain, and I'm like, if
Yeah.
listen, if I send you that photo, you're cooked. It's over. Whatever I'm
Mm-hmm.
about to say is about to end you.
No, it's like while I was watching it, as soon as he did it, I'm like, yo, that's gonna go strike fire on the internet.
I didn't
The
think he
Say
was.
Drake
I
part. I
wasn't sure if
knew
he
it.
was gonna do it. I wasn't sure if he was gonna do it. He had the little teaser where he almost, almost sang "They're Not Like Us,"
Uh-huh.
and then
Yeah.
they were like talking about how they could sue. They like to sue.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe he won't. Maybe he'll just tease us with it. And no, I can't.
No,
I don't
yeah.
know who gave clearance on that one, but thank God, because they don't. The NFL doesn't give a lot of clearance on stuff like that. They've been really, really tight since the Janet Jackson incident. They have been pretty tight on what
Mm-hmm.
they allow in the Super Bowl, and they let
You
him
know,
let it
yeah,
fly. But
they let
like
it fly for
so
sure.
many great things about that performance, like that
I
you
like Samuel L. Jackson in it too. I liked that part of it too.
as
Yeah,
Uncle Sam, right?
Uncle Sam. Yeah.
Um, Throwing Serena Williams in there, Crip Walk.
Uh huh.
I mean, honestly, nobody other than maybe Patrick Mahomes had a worse night than Drake.
Yeah, yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, I mean, the game over, all the video game icons, everything about it from start to finish, all of his song choices, the red, white, and blue dancers,
Uh huh.
performing the American flag during Humble. Oh my God,
Yeah.
he's a brilliant performer when it comes to the statements that he's making. And so if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what he's saying and you don't understand it, yes, I could see how you wouldn't enjoy it and it would be
It would
boring
go
to
over.
you.
Yeah.
And he's not a big, showy, flashy performer. He mostly just walked around.
Uh huh.
But if
Did a
you know
couple little two
if you know
steps.
it's good, you know it's good.
It's good. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, for sure. I didn't really get to see too much internet reaction about the halftime show. But I did like just hear a lot of people's personal opinions on it, and everybody loved the Drake shot. That was like the number one thing. But in my opinion, like you said, I loved everything about it. Like you said, it wasn't like super, shocky and all the glamorous and stuff. It was a lot of simple, just two-step dances and a lot of walking around and things like that. But it was like, for the people who knew the beef or, what was going on, you kind of were just intrigued to see what was going to happen next. Like what's going to be done next, or when is he going to sing this song? You were just kind of anticipating it. But no, I liked everything about it. I liked him up there with SZA.
Yes,
Uh,
it was fantastic as
yeah,
usual.
yeah, but that was good. And like you said, the red, white, and blue, the dancers, that takes a lot of work. People don't know all that choreographing with all those people and making sure everybody makes the right turn or doesn't trip, fall, or make any mistakes. That definitely takes a lot. So, but no, I give credit to all the dancers who, never really get the love, but they did great for sure, making sure everything looked good around him for sure, for certain. But no, yeah, no, that completes our weekend though. Shout out to the Eagles again on winning the big one. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP. Um, I'm sure, like you said, it's not the end of the Chiefs, but the whole GOAT debate is definitely laid to rest, like we talked about as well. But no, yeah. My birthday was yesterday, so it was great for me to
Yeah,
get
I saw
that
you had a little
done.
bit of a celebration when the Eagles won. Tell me about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, I was kind of talking to it was the week of the Commanders game, and I was nervous. I ain't gonna lie, I was nervous about the Commanders game because I'm like, this dude Jay Daniels. If the Eagles don't play up the part, like obviously they can lose. And I didn't, obviously I didn't want my team to lose and then be the first rookie to go in the Super Bowl. I didn't want my team to do that, but no, during that week, I'm like, I was like, telling my buddy highlight, highlight. Uh, I was telling him, I said, yo, man, I'm like, if the Eagles, once they had beat the Commanders, and I realized the Super Bowl was on my birthday because I didn't even realize that. But I realized it was on my birthday. I said, man, if the Eagles make it to the Super Bowl and win it on my birthday, I told him, I said, I'm jumping in that pond right there in front of your house. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to jump into that pond in front of your house if the Eagles win the Super Bowl on my birthday. He was like, you serious? I'm like, yeah. He was like, all right. He was like, I'm going to take you up on it. And sure enough, that's what happened. And I knew I didn't have no problem with doing it. Like it was like 30 degrees too, but it was like I was so geeked and hyped, like Super Bowl wins are hard to come by. So when your team gets one, it's like a glory moment for you, So it's just like
Yeah,
I was so
you definitely weren't the craziest Eagle fan yesterday.
nah, yeah, no, for sure, 100%. Like, but that was like the craziest I've ever got. I'm more like calm, chill guy. But yesterday, I'm like so loud during the game. I kind of told everybody that was watching it with me too, like, hey, apologize in advance, but I'm going to be yelling at this TV for sure. And so, I was just really like, a lot more animated than I usually am. And uh, the highlight recorded it all after it was over. He was kind of was watching me watch the seconds roll down because I told him, I said, as soon as it gets to double zero or triple zeros, I'm out of here.
You
So,
didn't celebrate at 2:44 when they dumped the Gatorade on Sirianni? 'Cause that was
uh-uh.
early.
Yeah, it was early. That was way early.
That was
I kind of
early.
thought they should have waited for sure. I was like, man, it's kind of early. But I saw that, and then I was going to go, but I'm just like, nah, I want to wait till it says doubles, triple zeros on there, and where it's over, and that's what I kind of waited for. And as soon as it did, I took off, ran out there, dove in the water. It was still some ice out there too, which was crazy. I dove in there and just broke all the ice. It
Amazing.
wasn't that bad though. It was kind of like a little cold plunge. It wasn't. It
It
wasn't
looked
as bad as I
fun.
thought
It
it
looked
was.
I wouldn't do it, but it did look fun.
Yeah, no, I got a lot of reaction from it too. Motherfuckers like, you're crazy. I wouldn't have never did that. It's 30 degrees outside.
You are a
But
little
no,
crazy, but I mean, hey, it looks
yeah.
fun as hell. I can't believe that this NFL season is over.
It's over. Yeah,
I don't
great
know what I'm gonna
season.
do with my Sundays anymore. I might actually have to clean my house like
Yeah, yeah.
on a Sunday. Like, are you kidding me?
I know.
But
Yeah.
what a conclusion. And
It was a great
I
season for
truly
sure.
can't believe that it's over. And it
Yeah.
forward to 363 days from now when the Bengals are in the Super Bowl.
Hopefully against my team.
I would
That would
much
be
prefer.
that would be a great show
That would
for
be a
us.
great show from us. I I hope that next year that I don't have to sit through another freaking comeback
Playoff
player
run.
of the year award, and then I can actually just see our guy Joe win MVP like he
Yeah.
deserves. Because
No.
those numbers,
If
the only reason he wasn't further into consideration was
it's because of the playoff. They didn't
because
make
they
it.
missed the
Yeah.
playoffs because of the win column. And unfortunately, even though wins is not a quarterback stat, it is most definitely considered in the voting for NFL honors. That's for sure because
Yeah.
Hendrickson didn't win, Jamar didn't win,
My
the
guy Zach
round was
Bond didn't
not
win.
mentioned. Like, so you have to be a playoff team almost at all to be included in the conversation for those kind of honors and awards.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to being a playoff team. That's for sure.
No, for sure, definitely. If y'all were a playoff team, Burrow probably would have got MVP. No question. I mean, just off the. I mean, all those guys put up big numbers, but to me, I think it would have been hands down Burrow's season for MVP.
And it was
I kind
Josh
of feel like
Allen, like we
I kind of
said.
feel like he
Congratulations
missed
to
out.
Josh Allen.
Yeah, no doubt,
Well
Josh
deserved.
Allen, because he was our pick for
Yeah.
sure to win it. Um, so no, definitely, I'm not taking nothing away from Josh for sure, but it kind of to me it just kind of feels like one got away from Joe. If they would have just made the playoffs, he would have got one of those. It's just like a MVP, kind of like a LeBron thing. He could win it all the time, but if LeBron didn't make the playoffs, he wouldn't probably get none of those MVPs he got those years he did. So,
Yeah.
but definitely, it was a great season. It was we got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to go into next year and talk about as well. We got the draft coming up in a couple months. So I'm sure things will get spicy with that. I'm sure there'll be trades of some sort for sure. So, but no,
And we get to turn
um,
our attention to some basketball now.
yeah, for sure. We'll talk college basketball, women's and men, and WNBA and NBA as well, for sure. So, football's gone, but we'll be able to put our attention to other sports, obviously, elsewhere, for sure. But no, thank you everyone for tuning in to the He Said, She Said Sports Talk podcast. I'm your host, Big Red, along with my lovely host, Toni, and we will see you guys next week. Love and peace.